Hey everybody, coming at you from out in the woods. We're just going to spend a nice relaxing evening out here, and I'm going to tell you some stories about gear and people and estate sales. So I think I got a story that's rather interesting, and I'm just going to share a little bit of thoughts about that story. And the main story is based on this axe right here, and we're going to talk a whole bunch more about it. All right, let's set some of this stuff down right here. I got the sun glaring in my eyes, so I'm picking. I hope I'm picking all this up. For years and years and years, I used to love going to flea markets. And then after flea markets, I started going to yard sales. And then after yard sales, I started going to Goodwill and Salvation Army and thrift stores. Well, after a while, I got to where I kind of got tired of it. And you know, the prices started going up and the selection started going down because so many people started going there. So that's when I discovered estate sales. And estate sales are kind of interesting to me because, I don't know, it just, the other places you have a variety of stuff, but when a person passes away, their entire life is in that location and for sale. Everything they ever owned, everything they ever loved, everything they collected their entire life is in that house and for sale because they're no longer around. Some people maybe think that's kind of morbid, but I don't know. You just have to think about it, you know? But the person that's passed on, what was the value of their entire life? You know what I'm saying? Should it just be discarded, or, you know, is it good to be sold and given away, or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Like, almost like a part of that person's love for what they surrounded themselves with carries on. It's just, it's a weird subject to talk about without getting kind of weird, you know. But anyway, you can tell a lot. You can tell a lot about a person when as soon as you go into the estate sale. Like one time I went to this one estate sale, and it was completely, there was a room that was completely full. It had 3 sewing machines. I had, the wall was lined with bobbins and thread, and there was drawers full of needles and bins full of yarn. So obviously the person sewed a lot. There was another one I went to one time, and the upstairs of the house looked pretty nice, pretty normal. But you go downstairs, and the entire basement was anything and everything you could think about woodworking. And I ain't talking about just sawing up some 2x4s. I'm talking about dados, routers, joiners, planers, biscuit makers, tenons, just anything, furniture making. So you could tell a lot about that guy. And then on and on. And he was obviously a woodworker. Now, there was another one time. I'm always looking for military surplus. And so there was this one estate sale one time. Most of the estate sales that I go to are either in Kennesaw, Marietta, Roswell, or Smyrna. And I went to one time, and as soon as I walked in the door, there was a U.S. Army uniform hanging on the door, and it even had all the medals on it. I couldn't believe it. I thought, is this person's family not want his uniform? But anyway, the woman told me, said, yeah, the guy was a sergeant major, and he had been in the Army for 20 years. And then after he got out of the Army, he spent 10 years as a ROTC commander or trainer, something. I can't remember what she said. But anyway, sometimes I'll look up the address of the house and see if it gives me a name, and maybe it's got an obituary. And sounds kind of creepy, yeah, but hear me out. When you read that obituary, you know, that's celebrating that person's entire life. That was their accomplishments in life. And so I read about this. Now, he was a master sergeant, not a sergeant major. Sergeant major comes later in the story. The master sergeant went to Vietnam, and anyway, so I went to the house, and up in the closet was this olive drab poncho. Now, where this olive drab poncho was, I have no idea. I don't know if this thing was old enough to have been in Vietnam or what, but I don't bring it out very often. But that's pretty cool, and I think that right there kind of fits in with this video. And then when I went upstairs into his room, there was a Foot Locker that was just covered in canteens and all kinds of other stuff, all kinds of you know, olive drab old-fashioned equipment, and there was 2 sleeping bags on the bed, and there were the old M1949 mountain bags. So I grabbed both of them, and they're pretty heavy, but they were in great shape and they had covers, so I felt like it was kind of fitting to bring it along on this trip. So let's throw this to the side. Let's talk about the axe next. I got to get this sun out of my eyes. So let's have a look at this axe. This axe is pretty much the basis for this video. This is an axe that I bought at an estate sale. And I shoved it inside here so that in case I wanted to strap it on a pack maybe, or I got these pouches, maybe I want to put on a first aid kit, maybe a ferro rod. Probably a good idea to have a first aid kit with an axe. But this thing's on here, and also I put it on there so I could carry it in the future in my inflatable canoe, and there was no way nothing would poke on it. But this is some sort of a MOLLE pouch, and this thing didn't come with a mask. I had to make one. Made one out of olive drab with this right here, and then it's got a plastic liner inside it. I got to doing a little bit of research on this, and all it says on it was USM. I don't know, 3.5, 1.5, 2.5. I don't know. I couldn't tell. Check it out. That mirror finish. This thing was a piece of junk when I got it, and I spent a lot of time working on it, and I'm going to explain why in a minute, because it's already kind of late. And I hear gunshots. So I'm gonna try to set up a shelter of some kind here, and then we're gonna sit down and I'm gonna stare at the camera and tell you a real interesting story, because it, you know, I don't know, I just think it's interesting. It kind of moving, you know, kind of got to do with honoring those who came before us, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna try to, let's chop a little bit with this. Maybe I can get something I can use for my shelter here. That bouncing around ain't gonna get it. Let's move this thing up a hill a little bit where we got more of a solid stance. Let's see if this has any markings on it. Yeah, here it does. Kind of wore out. Oh! 1965. Multi-purpose poncho. Let's see if I can catch it. Can you see it right there? Maybe not. June of 1965. I bet that thing was in Vietnam. Sometimes you got to take that cordage and tie that hood off. But I saved the bungee cord for it. I'm just going to wrap it around it. Now I think I'm going to throw a lot of this stuff back in this backpack that we ain't going to need. Let's see. We'll leave that out. I definitely have to leave this out and that out. Now let me show you something here. Right here. Whenever you're traveling, take your batteries out of your light and don't put them in like a plastic bag. I put them inside a glove. That way, sometimes if these batteries touch each other, sometimes they'll kill each other. So let's go ahead and get these things in. Because it's going to be dark here in about a half an hour. I want to go ahead and have these things ready to go. Oh, it don't work. Let's take another look. I was in backwards. There we go. Come on now. There we go. All right, I'm going to do this other one, then we're going to drag this stuff around to the front and have a little chit chat. When I went around to the other side, I got to noticing this was kind of sagging down, so I just happen to have a tree here handy that I can pull this up a little bit. There we go. So I got everything I need under here. And there's already a nice layer of pine straw. So it's going to be nice and padded from the ground. And I could probably gather up more. I'm going to put this down towards the end. I can't even remember if I said or not, but I got my lanterns right here hanging where I can, right where I can get them. Let's roll around to the other side and get the bag now. So now it's story time. All right. This axe. Like I said earlier, I go to a lot of different yard sales. I mean, estate sales. Well, one time, the master sergeant, yeah, I'm trying to remember, the master sergeant that had passed away lived in Marietta, Georgia, and it's where I got this. He fought in Vietnam, and that's where I got this poncho that's labeled 1965. And I got two of these M1949 sleeping bags. And his uniform was there for sale with all the medals, but I don't get into that. I would never buy anything like that ever. No medals, no, and it was the dress uniform. But, you know, surplus stuff that I can actually get out and use, yeah, I'll use it. So, all right, here goes the other story. I went to this one house. It was a really, really, really nice house. All right. A lot of time estate sales go 3 days. A lot of times they're Friday and Saturday, and a lot of times they're Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Either 2 days or 3 days. So I go to this one place, and it's on a Sunday. It's the last day of the sale. And we walk in, and they say, everything that's marked 50% off, and it goes down after 12. And we had gotten there at about 11:50. So we're like, okay. So we walk around, and we're looking, and I go out into the garage, and there's a couple of real old, heavy, thick shovels. So I grab one of them for my dad, because Dad says shovels are flimsy nowadays. And so I find this axe head here, and this axe head was on a different handle. It was on a brand new handle where it had been refitted, but it was way too big for this small head, and it said $10 on it. So I grabbed it. I may show that one to you at the end of the video if I remember when I get home tomorrow. So anyway, it said $10, and I thought, well, all right, that's an axe head, I'm gonna get that. And so I was nosing around, and I looked, and the original handle was laying there on the floor behind it. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, this is the original handle. He said, I just take it, whatever. So I'm like, okay. So I'm looking around everywhere, and I don't see any military stuff, but there's a lot of outdoorsy type stuff. So then I go down in the basement, and in the basement, I have never seen more organization in my life. And there was big windows on the back of the house in the basement, and you could oversee the yard, and you could tell at one time the yard was highly manicured, and it had walkways, and it had a bench, and a bunch of bushes, and there was a fish pond out there. And at one time, it was beautiful. Somebody spent a lot of effort and time in their backyard manicuring it. And so I thought, dang, this guy must be really into the landscaping and flowers and shrubbery and what do you call it? I think maybe horticulture, maybe. Y'all laugh if I'm wrong, but anyway, real nice place. And I went in the shop and started looking around, and there was tons of sprayers, rows, rose and tulip fertilizer and boost growing type things. And so I'm like, this guy's was really into growing. And he had a dry erase board and everything on it. Now, this was like 6 or 7 months ago, I believe. I think it was, yeah. It really wasn't that long ago. And this dry erase board had dates on it, 96, 98. And I was like, man, this guy didn't spend much time down here. He must have, you know, got older, gave up. I don't know. But anyway, it was like replaced pump in fish pond, 1996, had some date. And then it was like fertilized rhododendrons, you know, 97. And then it was like transplanted tulip bulbs, 98. You know, everything was back in the 90s. And here it was, I was there in 2021. So I was looking around. I go over and I look in the bench, pull out the drawers, and it's full of Armstrong wrenches and sockets and ratchets. Armstrong, Esco, Proto, Blackhawk. I'm like, man, there is no junk in this place. This is wonderful. But all these wrenches and everything, nothing's labeled. So I run back upstairs and I say, hey, I said, there's a bunch of tools downstairs. And I said, they're not labeled. I said, how do I go about getting a price on them? And so they're like, look, it's our job to empty this house. This house is sold in a week. And they said they hired us to empty this place. And so they pulled up boxes and sat them on the table. And they said, fill up these boxes, $5 each. And I was like, all right. And I said, even the tools? And they said, even the tools. They said, we don't care. It's our job to empty this place. And they said, the man's children have gone through and got what they wanted, and everything else has got to go because this house is sold. So I'm like, all right. So I run down there, and I'm grabbing all the wrenches and the sockets and the ratchets, you know. For those of you mechanical type of dudes, you could just imagine the euphoria I was going through, because there was these little bitty Armstrong wrenches, and then there were the real extra long Armstrong wrenches, and then there were sockets, there was ratchets. And so I was filling them up, and I got all the really good tools that I could find. So then I went over to the shelves, and I was like, all right, look at this. Packs of stainless steel screws and I don't know, hardware, you know, hooks, hinges, you know, just stuff that if you got to go to Lowe's, a little handful will cost you $20. And so I'm grabbing all this stuff and throwing it into the bins. And as I'm looking around, I look down on the bottom shelf and there's sandpaper. And so I'm like, all right, sandpaper. So I lean down, and as I'm looking at the sandpaper, I notice off in the distance. Now, at this time, I had seen absolutely no military stuff. Nothing. I had no idea. I didn't even think this guy was in the military, unless his kids got all of his stuff, so I don't know. So I'm looking, and there's this filthy olive drab piece wadded up just like this, laying up under there. So you know me, I mean, it was filthy. I grab it, and I just throw it on top of the box because it was $5 a box. Okay, so as the story rocks on, I take this, and I wash it. All right. And then I'm like, that turned out pretty clean. That's pretty neat. So I just take it and I just throw it on the table in the gear room, and it's laying in there. All right. So as far as that goes, that's how that estate sale went. Now, let me cut this off and finish the story, because I got to go back and get my cell phone on the other side. And it makes it easier for me to edit. Also noticed I got to change the battery. It's almost dead. All right. Yeah, it's almost dead. All right, so let's go. I only have 2 batteries. GoPro. All right, I'm going to change the battery and finish the story. Now, like I said, remember when I left you last time, I had thrown the hood. I had thrown the hood on my table in my gear room, and the axe was just laying in the shop for one of these days. All right, let's change this battery. All right, so we have a fresh battery. Now, when we left off last, I was talking about the hood, okay? And then the axe, which sat in my shop for a good while. Now, right here. Fast forward 4 months later, 3-4 months later, I'm planning a video, okay? I see these lights right here that I've been bragging about a lot lately. I've been using them in several videos. Some of you may remember that I took this hat here and I modified it to where I could slide those lights in each side here. Okay, well, that wasn't my first choice. That was my second choice, because I thought to myself, when I thought, I want to attach them to my head somehow so that I can see what I'm doing, and I can use those as a lantern or a flashlight or in my shelter or on my head. Okay, so the first thing I did is I grabbed this, because I thought to myself, I don't know how this got there. I have no idea. I don't know what it was for. It was just a hood. And it could, I guarantee you, if I hadn't found it under that shelf, this would have been in the trash. There is no doubt in my mind it would have been in the trash, because it was so filthy. Crumbled up, laying underneath the shelf. So I get this, and I'm thinking to myself, well, this thing was, I thought this thing was just a piece of junk, you know, laying on the floor, filthy, and I washed it 3 times to get it in the shape it's in. And so I thought, maybe I can sew something to this. And so I start looking around, and as I fold down the bill, I'm like, oh, look. So I get a name. All right. So I typed this name in the internet because I remembered where it went. I typed in this name because I thought, maybe the guy that lived there, I didn't see any military stuff there, so maybe the guy that lived there, maybe he bought this at a surplus store or something, or maybe he got it with a jacket, I don't know. So I type in a name, and lo and behold, the name came up with the house in Kennesaw that I was at. And I pulled up a picture of the house, and it showed where it was sold. It had the address for this man. Showed where it was sold, how much it was sold, and the date it was sold. And I thought, wow, that's him. This guy was in the military. So I thought, I looked further. I typed in his name, and I typed in Kennesaw, Georgia, and then I typed in obituary. And then this is just where I was blown away, and I was thinking to myself, and I talked to my dad about this. And before I read part of his obituary, now I'm not going to read the whole thing, and I'm not going to give you his name, because his kids are still alive, and I don't know how they would feel about it. I don't know what kind of relationship they had. From the looks of the obituary, they had a great relationship. He was a great man. But I'm not going to say his name. I'm going to read as much as I can here. Really should have brought my glasses, but I'm going to start where it matters. He was a Purple Heart recipient with a distinguished 30-year U.S. Army career, retiring as Sergeant Major. As a member of the elite Green Berets, he was the first Special Forces member recognized for a low-level combat parachute jump in Vietnam. And so I'm like, oh man, this guy was awesome. And in a little while, I'll tell you about, I'll finish reading, but I'll tell you about what I talked to my dad about. Because my dad was in the Air Force during Vietnam. He you know, a Green Beret is a different story, much different story in Vietnam. So anyway, he earned medals and ribbons, including the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star, the Army Commendation Medal with a V device for heroism, Good Conduct Medal, 10th Award, National Defense Service Award, Vietnam Campaign Model, Vietnam Civil Actions Honor Medal First Class, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with a Silver Star, Combat Infantry Badge, Scuba Diver Badge, and the Master Parachute and High Altitude Low Opening Halo Parachute badges. He was also awarded Foreign Military Honors, Belgian Commando Badge, and German, Belgian, Korean Parachutist Badges, and the Greek Halo Parachutist Badge. His final assignment was as the Sergeant Major with the North Georgia College ROTC Department. After his military career, he worked as a HUD appraiser. Never one to sit idle, he worked on the family property. He cut and donated firewood for elderly neighbors. So, I couldn't believe all that I read. I couldn't believe it. Now, I think a lot of you, if you're so inclined, if you feel like it, some of you may say that's kind of sick and twisted to look it up, but to me it was just, like I said, it's the mere fact that a person's life, they live their life and it's completely over, and are they supposed to be forgotten? Well, no, you know, and you know, here it is now. I've got I've got, you know, this guy's hood, and I've got this guy's axe right here. And so, you know, a part of him is still here. And, but anyway, I mean, I don't know if his kids cleaned out all of his stuff, or if he got rid of it all, or if he didn't have it, or if they did get it all, but I don't know. But I got to talking to my dad about it, and I mentioned to it about all I could find there of this man was a hood. And he said, well, he said, you never know what a guy like him saw. He said maybe he didn't want to be reminded of it. So, I don't know. But as soon as I read all that stuff, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I've never known a Green Beret in real life, and I've certainly never known one that was on record as having the very first low altitude jump. And this guy, he was certified scuba. He was certified high altitude. I'm like, wow. And I'm thinking to myself, here I am. I'm a machinist and a camper. What good have I done the world? And this guy's like, man, this guy's done a lot. So as soon as I read that, I did not sew on this. I left it alone. And then next day I ran out there and I grabbed this and I sharpened it real good and I polished it real good, and then I worked on the handle, and now I thinned the handle down. I don't know, it was a lot thicker, but I thinned it down and I polished it up slick, and I covered it with boiled linseed oil, so it's got a nice finish. And I thought to myself, this axe is going to stay with me, because I mean this belonged to one heck of a guy. I mean, I was like, oh wow. So it's pretty sharp. It'll actually shave wood. I don't know why it didn't cut that pine very good, but I don't know. I mean, it got through it. I don't know. Maybe I was trying to baby it. I don't know. Anyway, so, but my question to you, now that I have told you the story, this hood, now this is just an axe, okay? No telling where he bought it. This thing, he may have chopped, I mean, it was actually his obituary. He chopped wood, firewood for elderly neighbors. Maybe he used it for it, so, you know, that's neat right there. But this thing right here, I don't know how long he had it or where he wore it. So my question to you is, should this hang on the wall in my gear room, or should I wear it? Should I sleep in it? Should I wear it in the winter time? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Would it be respectful? Would it be disrespectful? Would it remember him? Would it honor him? I don't know. But I haven't put it on my head yet. So, I don't know. It cleaned up like new. You can see the back of it. So anyway, that's the story. Normally I do a whole bunch of bushcrafting and camping and survivaling, but this was just too interesting of a story to not share. I mean, I thought it really moved me. I was like, wow, man. So, y'all let me know in the comment section, what should I do with the hood? Hang it up and just stare at it, or should I actually wear it? You know, make it a part of my other surplus camp gear that I have allowed to remain alive. You know what I'm saying? So, let's chop a little bit more of this for you in the video. Just because I got a giant mountain bag, not going to have a fire, doesn't mean I can't have a little bit of fun. So that's the story. I thought it was interesting. I hope y'all find it interesting. Till the meantime, get out, enjoy life, camp as often as you can, and even if you can't, get out and hike. Now, oftentimes, I don't even know. I hate it when I can't see myself on this thing. Yeah, I think I can now. Oftentimes, I'm such a busy person that I don't even... Sometimes I do this just for fun. No fire, no food, no water. I just come out here and enjoy. Like there's times when I work first shift and then I switch over to second shift the next day. Sometimes I go out right before dark. If I know it's not going to rain, if it's going to rain, I don't fool with it. Because if it's going to rain, I'll bring, you know, a bunch of extra gear, or maybe even a tent. But on nights where it's just going to be cold and I want to block the wind, bring a tarp. And just lay down. And then the next morning, I'll wake up and pack up and drive home. Sometimes I'll do that. It's just peaceful being out here. Sometimes you just got to get out and enjoy life while you can. So, y'all take care. We shall. See you in the next one. Oh, I forgot to tell y'all, when you're watching this video, our annual shutdown is in April, where we work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 or 3 weeks. And so if I'm late on answering comments, it's because I'm living at work for 2 or 3 weeks. But you got to make the money to pay for this stuff. We shall. See you in the next one.